calling in from Alvin, Texas. Hey, Jeremiah, what's going on?
Hey, Dan. Hey, Desh. Same old stuff every different day.
Same stuff, different day. Man, look, I don't know what world you're living in, but it seems like different things are happening
every day
differently right now. But yeah, I feel you.
I wanted to talk about. I watch a lot of YouTubes and stuff with these guys that debate flat Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like the debunkers and stuff on the internet.
Sure.
And what I've always kind of had this feeling is that I put theists in a very similar category with flat earthers. They don't have very much evidence to support their stuff. They just believe it because it fits their narrative. And I've always kind of wondered why more people don't take that tact. I just kind of wanted to see what you thought about that.
The reason why is because most people are religious. That's really what it is at the end of the day. I mean, like if you have a God belief and you recognize that your God belief is based on some precepts that are, might be similar to someone else's belief, which you recognize to be false, you're going to have some cognitive dissonance there, and you're probably going to separate yourself from analyzing it that way. Now, of course, when we're talking about flat earthers, the evidence, I would say the evidence for flat earth stuff is maybe qualitatively different from Christian stuff, because at least a lot of flat earthers will try to put out like models and stuff. Like, I don't know, there's some other like physical ideas that I tend not to see from a lot of Christians, and even Christians themselves. I know I did this when I was a Christian. There's this idea of the non-overlapping magisteria, the difference between science and religion. And so I had this idea that, science can't prove religion at all because they just exist in totally different worlds, which really isn't true. If you're making a claim about the physical world, then you can examine that through the lens of science. And flat earth claims are almost, and flat earth claims are almost exclusively within the realm of science, right? Like they're not making kind of spiritual claims, at least not really. Maybe they'll have something to say spiritually on NASA or something. But outside of that, a lot of it is like sort of testable claims that maybe they aren't using the best methodology to look at. You
hear a lot of the flat earthers that come out with this whole idea of where did it all come from? And there had to be a creator to start it all, and that's one of the reasons that I find a lot of similarities is due to the similarity in arguments between flat earthers and like young earth creationists, for example.
That's because a lot of the flat earth community is very religious. A lot of them are young earth creationists. If you watch the documentary Behind the Curve, they point this out a little bit too, and some other places have pointed this out, because there is a plausible reading from some texts in scripture where you could posit a flat earth model. Now, I think their idea of cosmology was completely different anyway, at least if we're talking about Jewish sources in particular. But like, there's definitely some concentric circles there, right? Like there's definitely, if you drew a Venn diagram between like young earth creationists and flat earthers, like they're in that same camp. They're
pretty close.
Yeah, I don't know, Desh, what's your experience with this stuff?
I can't say I have much experience with interacting with flat earthers. I am based in Sydney, Australia, and I have had a lot of interactions with people over here, and it's not even remotely a thing that comes up.
You know why, Jeremiah? I mean, Jeremiah. Sorry, I was reading the bottom. You know why? It's because Australia doesn't exist, according
to
so you're not even on a real place right now.
Yep. So I really don't have much to add other than
that's it. We called them out, boys. We got them.
I actually have heard a few of the flat earthers from Australia. Actually.
You have
come out on the internet,
right?
I'm sure.
So here's the thing: so maybe they have an audience in America, but they definitely do not have an audience in Australia. I don't know anyone who talks about it. I haven't seen it. It hasn't come to my peripheral.
I don't know. I think wacky beliefs are all over the world. They're not.
That's true. That's true.
Not exclusive to one geographic region, I think. But Jeremiah, you're right. I think I think if people were able to kind of separate their own religious beliefs and look at it and examine it in the same way as the flat earth stuff, they might come to the same conclusions that you do. Now, granted, again, that's with the caveat of, I think religious beliefs in general are more complicated than flat earth, because again, flat earth is almost exclusively a question of science, whereas your religious stuff, you can go a lot of different places there outside of the scope of that. And that's maybe the only
I kind of thought it was effective as a way of kind of shaking their foundation.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Flat Earth.
Well, you're right, because
to look at.
Yeah, because a lot of people who have religious beliefs that they don't realize can be demonstrated through science, or at least can be examined. Like if we're talking about the efficacy of prayer or something, intercessory prayer in particular, like they've done studies on that. They've shown whether or not there's a difference there, but people will rationalize it in different ways, right? Yeah, for sure. Well,
that's understandable. I guess you got a good point with the fact that it's not so much science based for the religious people, and they don't need the critical thinking as an explanation.
I mean, okay, again, I got to put asterisks, right? Because like Christianity in particular, if we're going to go the Christian route, like there are some that use science as the reason for their belief. They will at least posit scientific claims and use that as the base kind of evidence for their beliefs. And then there's some who don't use science at all, like I did, science wasn't as big of a deal. And some will use historical claims. Some will use philosophical arguments. That's why I'm saying it's more than just science when it comes to religious beliefs. There's a lot of different avenues. Whereas flat Earth, it's pretty much just science. Like I don't know, and maybe whether or not you trust NASA, which is a different thing. But anyway, but great call, Jeremiah. Thanks for calling in about it. Do appreciate it.
Thanks for the call, Jeremiah.
Yeah, no problem. Have a good night.
All right, talk to you later. So you never talked to a single flat earther, huh?
I have not come across one of them. That's you seem surprised.
I guess because if you're running around, these Sam Harris and these kind of circles, I just imagine you've talked to some interesting people, huh?